And we are live again. Welcome back to Tea and Crones. I am the voice of the people, Dahlia Rose, here to shepherd your comments on to these lovely ladies that we have here with us, the hosts of the show, Corby Bitlight and Katrina Rasbold. So if you've never been with us before, I'd like to start us off with introductions. And why don't we have Corby take us away?
Okay, good evening, or as we say in New York, hello there. I'm Corby Midline, certified tarot master, past life specialist, full-time intuitive counselor. Been doing this stuff since I was 18, I'm 66. Practical, I love the work. I'm lucky I get to do it. 3 books under my belt, another one getting written this year. That's me.
Wonderful. And then we have the lovely Miss Katrina.
Katrina Rasbold. I am an intuitive healer. I also own Crossroads Metaphysical Store in Shingle Springs, California. I've written 38 books on subjects, most of them on the magical arts, 10 of them with my husband, Eric Rasbold. As we say in Kentucky, how's your mama, Nim? Gee. And I'm a tarot reader of, almost 40 years. Wrote a book called Tarot for Real People on that. And I write for Pathos, the pagan side of Pathos, which is the consummate online blogging sphere for all things metaphysical and religious. So that's pretty much what I do. I'm, like I said, an intuitive spiritual healer and also do spell work for people. Basically, I am a professional witch for hire.
Awesome.
And her spell work, hot cha, guys.
Yeah.
I tell you.
And I just want to say, we're a few, what is this? Is this number 8, Dahlia?
This is number 8.
So this is number 8, and I just want everybody to just really take a minute and recognize Dahlia, who is the most amazing addition to what Corby and I decided to do with this. And she is such a phenomenal host, and the show absolutely would not be the same without her. She's a pistol. We just love her to pieces, and she is so good at facilitating what we do and keeping the show on track and moving along. Fantastic producer. So yay, Dahlia.
Oh, well, how do we move on from that? I'm a little perplexed.
Yeah,
you're a good producer. Do it.
I'm good. All right.
All right. Well, thank you, both of you, and thank you, Katrina, for those very indescribable words. I'm moved. I really am. I'm Virgo moved, so it's happening on the inside. So like I said earlier, welcome back. We are on episode 8, and this is the difference between a leaf and a tree. So what we want to hear from you tonight is a little bit of your story in terms of things that you've reached for that were maybe they were momentary in terms of learning, and then the things that really stuck with you. And I think that that Corby could probably describe this a little bit better than I can. So we'll start there. Corby.
Okay. Leaf and tree. When we're kids, it's this group this month and another group, and then we're into Dungeons and Dragons, and oh my God, we found ElfQuest, and now I'm looking at the Renaissance Fair. We're all over the map. And they're lovely and they're good memories, but then we find the stuff we stick with. That's your tree. Like with me, I did all of that. The Hooters, ElfQuest, the SCA, which is a Renaissance reenactment group, and they were all important. But what have I stuck with all my life? It's been the tarot. It's been the spiritual stuff. It's been the looking inside. So that's my tree. The reason that I call it leaf and tree is leaves grow and die, and then they fall off. A tree will put down roots, and the tree is there from season to season to season. So when we find what our tree is, where we can put down roots, it gives us strength. we grow leaves. We might be something else that somebody else would find interesting. We might be able to make suggestions about where they could go or what they might want to look at. And it's important that, I think, total opinion, that we not have a life that's nothing but leaves and no trees. So the question that we want to look at tonight is, how can you tell where you're supposed to put your roots down and what is just a leaf that's going to blow away come fall? Does that make sense, Diane?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, one of the things that I'm hearing you say is, or well, I heard you say is that it was almost like it brought you back to you, which I think is a recurring theme throughout all of these broadcasts. I'm curious to know, for Katrina, you guys are both so versatile. Is there anything that stuck out for you as deeply rooted versus it was fleeting?
I don't have a tree. I don't even have a rake. I mean, I have nothing but a scattered pile of leaves. My life has just been a series of phases. And for me, I thought everybody was that way. Um, I've been someone that the phases or the things that were um, temporary, and of course, anything that's contemporary is only temporary. And I tend to just move from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, building on that like compost almost. I've never been one to have a particular thing that drives me in some way. Even with my magic, there's so many different things that fuel what I do, that I've never really felt that there was this one driving thing that pulled me together in some way. And I look at the world, and the world, especially globally, we move through phases. I can identify the current phase right now in four words, which is, we don't carry Moldavite.
Oh God! I'm
Okay.
triggered.
I know, it's trauma. And we're asked that 4 or 5 times a day because the TikTokers all come in wanting their Moldavite leaf. And I tell them, okay, for one thing, we are not going to pay the overdriven price that this now costs and pass on that expense to you when I can hand you 2 other crystals that do exactly the same thing. So that to me is a leaf. That's a global leaf on the tree. And when we look at the global tree, there are certain things that drive America, and there are certain things that drive the world spirit. And I would see those as trees. Maybe we're the leaves on the tree. But we always have the pet rock and the day glow and the things that are transient. And I just observe those as such incredible, magnificent pieces of the puzzle. But for myself, I think that I became embittered because I learned, that your twin flame special partner that you adore might not be there the next day. And so I don't usually have a relationship that is my tree. I adore my husband, but he's there because I choose for him to be. What I do, I know could change in a heartbeat. So I just approach it differently. And I was nervous about this topic because of that, but I know that we often have different approaches on things. So yeah, I'm just a big, huge pile of leaves in the wind, man.
I think as per usual, I'm somewhere in between. When I opened my store in 2017, I was very hyper focused on healing sessions. And so I had a couple of certifications under my belt, and I was like, nope, this is what we do. Like, yes, we have a store, but healing sessions, that's it. And I quickly got knocked on my butt. New business owner trying to be so resolute, without asking the public what their needs are, and then being urged in the ebbs and flows. To Katrina's point, were like we'd have a month of sales, and then a month of healings, and then a month of classes, and then it would sort of vacillate and oscillate And then to Corby's point, it seemed to be that the undergirding theme, my root, was self-healing. Like, how can I empower you so that you're not coming here frequently freaking out and no, don't text me in the middle of the night. You're not going to get a response, but so you can handle the crisis and then we can talk at a better time. So I think this is where I fall in between. Like I have, my roots are firmly planted in the healer's perspective for everything, to the point where I think conversations with me get boring because I'm like, oh, healing moment, and people are like, I just want to, I just wanted to talk, and I'm like, but did you see that? Did you see how it came together? And it was related to your father, and and they're just like, so.
It's not, you're always talking about the Baltimore Ravens, honey. That's no, healing is good. Healing is good. I want to ask Katrina something. When I look at you, and I've been in the shop, I felt your energy. There really does feel like you've got some strong roots to who you are, that if you will, everything hangs off of. Your strength of understanding how you do your magic in whatever flavor it is, your take no bullshit, your, I look at you and I cannot look at you and not see a tree, because there is so much strength that you just.
And the illusion is complete and my work here is done.
Yeah.
The glamour, right? Did I use the right term? It's glamour.
Yeah, the glamour is in place. Yes. It really isn't, because when I look, I love labels. I'm a big fan of labels. They help me center in who I am. The second I put a label on, the universe says, ha ha ha, and rips it right off. Wow. So when I started I was a high priestess for many years, and that was my label. And then suddenly everything that was about being a high priestess failed to resonate with me in any way at all. So something I considered to be a tree turned out to be a very large 20-year pile of leaves. And then after that happened, we opened the store. And I was going to be a pagan thrift store. I wanted to repurpose items I found in thrift stores for pagan use. And I was so excited about that. And I did that. And it's like, no, we're not going to do that, because a bunch of brujos came along and decided I was going to do healing. And so then I start doing healing, and I get heavily into that. I train out a bunch of fantastic healers. And then that part was done, and it's time to move on. And okay, now you do spell work for people. And so it's been this winding thing. And like you were saying, Dahlia, sales come in waves. You have Cauldron Week, and you have Incense Week, and you have Oil Week, and all of a sudden everybody walking. We're having Rock Week right now, and everything is really focused. It's like all of the monkeys like put salt on their sweet potato at the same time or something, and they're having this big conscious moment, and they all want the same thing. And so every time I think I've got down who I am at my core, something happens to shift that. And so that my life and my endurance has had to do so strongly with adaptability that it takes me, even from year to year, so far off of who I believed I was last year that I can't even nail it down anymore. And I just go with the flow. You'd think I was a Pisces or something, the way I just do the wibble wobble, but no, I don't know anyway. I've had to admit I know nothing.
Virgo is mutable. Adaptability is what we do. Oh, turn left.
But we resent the mutability.
Absolutely. Fucking hate it.
How dare you mute me?
Is that why the Pisces with a Virgo moon and the Virgo rising is like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Absolutely.
Because the Pisces loves being ephemeral, and they love being fluid, and they love not making a decision. And switching from day to day. And the Pisces that I know are so magnificently unpredictable, because one day they've got a business plan and this is what we're going to do. And the next day you talk to them and they have no clue what you're talking about. When you mention that business plan from the day before, they've moved on to something else because
Right.
it was a whole new day.
Next dream.
So I've really struggled with my lack of tree, actually. And I feel like if I am a tree, I'm the giving tree and I'm already down to the stump.
There's a rewrite on that. It's quick, but I'll have to send it to you, where the giving tree kind of sets boundaries.
That's different.
Yeah.
Yes.
I to the point of your trees and you talking about establishing roots, and then all of a sudden it's a pile of leaves. The vision that came to my mind was of the nature of a tree, right? When it's at its fullest, it's like, yes, look at my leaves. Oh my God, they're changing color too. Like, I'm red this year. I was yellow last year. And then woof, gone. And into sleep mode you go. So maybe that's the story, right? Like, between Corby's roots and Katrina's pile, all I can see is life cycle, right? Like, that's the medicine wheel.
Yes. Okay. So if you want to choose to be a leaf or a tree, how do you figure it out? I mean, I see leaves. She says pile of leaves. And all I can think of is my brother's very joyous Weimaraner, who sees a pile of leaves as heaven. And it is pure joy, and wham. So you got to have piles of leaves. They're joy. Trees, people, kind of lean on and hang out, and we may grow more leaves. That may be the whole thing, is leaves, grow leaves. I've had to have a life full of change between all the careers and the cancer and the divorces and the whole crazy family. Yeah, leaves. But I just know that for me, I could handle the changes if I knew I had a taproot one place there. If you can be a bunch of leaves and there's no tap, that's an art. And that is something I am not capable of. So I don't know. When, Dahlia, with your clients, do you see leaves or trees mostly? Do people come in and, this week it's this and this week it's this, and they never settle? Or they do maybe sometimes?
It's interesting you mentioned that. It's mostly leaves. When we opened and we had classes, again, Virgo, like tunnel vision, I was like, yes, this is what it is. And I had all these classes that I thought were harmonious, and they would build upon the last, but you didn't have to take them in order. And what I found was that people would just take what they needed. And so those were the leaf moments, right? And it was a little disheartening because of expectation on my part, which is a healer's lesson. Like, you cannot have expectation. But I also find an opportunity to guide from behind. So if I notice something going on in the cosmos, maybe we root down for that time. I start offering particular things, so we can root down, and then as it shifts and as life comes up to shake our individual trees, those leaves will fall and we go, well, shit, we're naked, and then we adjust.
Okay.
So that's where I am with the leaves and the trees. It's definitely an oscillation or an oscillation. Sometimes nudity is great. Like, people sleep on nudity, but you get to breathe, and be exposed. And that exposure with the leaf and the tree concept might look like what I was mentioning, the expectation. How can you grow in the roots of who you are, right? And within the context of those leaf moments. So for Katrina, being a high priestess, she was still Katrina. at the end of the day. And so even in that pile of leaves, there's maybe still some foundation, and then, you know, the universe blows her leaves away and says, fix it. Do
I
something.
think I think what led me to be this way, because I was not always this way, is that a lot of times the things that left my life were things that I thought would always be there, the things that I presumed would be permanent. I thought I would have a circle and be a high priestess and run a coven my entire life until I died. You know, I thought I would be married to my first husband all my life until I died. I thought I would be close with all 6 of my kids all my life until I died. I invested so strongly in certain friendships and relationships and experiences and ways that I identified myself, the label that I put on myself. I thought I was going to be a midwife until I couldn't physically catch babies anymore. So I did so many things in my life that were profound and meaningful that I really thought were going to be an identifier for me forever. That very abruptly, the universe just said, oh, we're not doing this anymore. And when that happened, it took away a core part of my identity and caused me to need to regroup and say, okay, now what happens next? It's not that I define myself by what I do. But when I'm doing something, I put my core being into it so strongly that when that goes away, it takes a mourning and a healing period for me to regroup and identify who I am. And when that happens, it's almost like I've planted a new tree. I'm not an evergreen anymore. Now I'm a fern. I'm not a fir. I'm not a fir anymore. Now I'm an oak tree. And so it's just been this constant changing. There hasn't been that thing I see in some people where from age 12, they know they're going to be an astrophysicist. They know that that's part of who they are and that's going to continue. I haven't had that consistency demonstrated to me. And so I think that that's where part of my lack of identity comes from in terms of trees and things like that.
Could your treeitude, I don't know if that's the word, be change?
I don't know.
Or is that too oxymoron, one hand clapping, go on, shit? I don't know.
Thinking of my identity or my core being as being changed makes me want to cry and be tired.
The Virgo stability is shaken.
Yeah, just the idea that all I am is changed just feels exhausting.
I think that there's an interesting, right? Like, we're not all the same. We're not all going to have the same reference points, right? So for me, what comes to my mind is my mom. So my mom knew she was going to be a mom from like the moment that she could conceive of the idea, which is pretty young, right? Like we all have, well, they try to put baby dolls in our hands. I didn't do that. But at age 10, my mom had my name picked out. And she was like, when I have a daughter, this will be her name. And I'm like, 10? Like, you have other priorities, ma'am. But she just knew from that point forward, where I can definitely identify in me and in the people that come to me. There's always that question. I'm sure we've talked about this on the show before about purpose. Mm-hmm. And people want that defining moment, that rooted moment. And I think that if you are asking it and you don't know it, maybe you fall in the other category, and that's what we're dealing with, is like there has to be universal balance.
Okay, when I'm lost. When you say when you ask and you don't know, ask what about what
ask you are, like what your purpose is, or like okay. You know, what should I pursue to create those roots?
Yeah.
Maybe yours is in constant flux and you fall in the flux category as opposed to just knowing. Like I've had those conversations with people like, you didn't just know that you were going to be doing that? Like, no, absolutely not. I was not going to be the lady with the rock on her head. And guess what? Almost every day now. So.
And then there are bonsai trees. They're the ones that are cut so that they have, that was your mother at 10. Family story. My grandmother, when she was pregnant with my father, kept finding which first and middle name would sound good with Dorkin MD. Dad had no choice, but he was going to be a Jewish doctor. Yeah, bonsai trees, nice for your garden, but that's not how you should grow. So is it, how do you figure out which is better for you? Let's say that you're a 20-year-old and you're trying to figure out leaf or tree. Are you better on the float, or are you better tucking into stuff? Because there is room for both. But
I
some
don't
people
think,
are confused.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
I don't think you know until you've got some miles on you. I think you have to have some universal trial and error, because I would have sworn I was a tree so many times in my life that I had these golden roots that were just into the earth and nothing could shake me. And so all of these things could happen, but it's not going to change who I am in some fundamental way until it did. And I look back when I was 20 years old, I gave birth to my third child and had been living on my own for 4 years. So that was a whole different world than where I was when I was 25, 26, and had been a childbirth instructor for 8 years by then. So I was doing a lot of different things at a lot of different times that completely changed who I was. So I would have said I was a tree, and by doing that, I fought against anytime any change would happen. Anytime something tried to fundamentally change who I was at my core being, I resisted it like mad, because I thought I was giving up some part of my integrity by shifting who I was. I was collapsing into external circumstances and therefore was not strong in my core being. And it took me decades to recognize that I had to let all of that go, that I was assigning an expectation onto myself that was not reflecting in practical application. And that if I kept fighting all of these turns and twists, all of these things that changed the core being of who I was going to not be able to fulfill my destiny, because I had so many hats I had to wear this time, so many things I needed to do, so many people I needed to interact with in the way that was appropriate for that interaction. So I had to keep shifting who I was. And once I stopped fighting that, that's when I could look back and say, okay, I'm not the consistency that I wanted as far as a tree. I'm not a consistent tree. So I don't know that I could have identified that when I was young. Many people can. I was not that person. I needed to really get well into my 50s to be okay with that.
What do you do with clients that come in and are, I have to know everything about this. This is going to be my life. And then a month later, well, now I have to know everything like this, and it's my whole life. They can A, be exhausting, and B, how do we serve them well? That's a serious question for you, Katrina, because I run into that.
I refer them to you.
Oh, thanks. Seriously, when nobody comes in here,
you just my way of engaging people comes from the way I was taught by the brujos, and that was engage a person where they are in the moment that they are in. I suspend everything to complete neutrality. If I've taken on a client, I'm team client. That is all there is to it. And so I'm in their space, and I work very hard intuitively to get into their headspace, hopefully with a more experienced or more higher vibrating perspective, so that I can give them a lighter or different approach to take that still feels congruent with who they are. So when I was in, especially when I was working in my last shop, we were in a main thoroughfare. We were actually in an 80-acre swap meet, and it was an actual building. It was a turn the key, lock the door building. It was the only one on the property. Everyone else was itinerant. And so there was a huge diversity of culture in this swap meet. So I had Russians over here, I had Mexicans over here, you know, I had Indians behind me. And so there were all these types of people. And I had to, if they came into my store, evolve into that culture with them and perceive their experiences from their cultural perspective, as well as from a practical perspective. So what I do if somebody is coming to me and they're just a hot mess, they're all over the place, they're trying to put their shit back together again, I try to come up with a plan for them that's based on where they are on all levels, where they are spiritually, where they are mentally, physically, sexually, familially, societally, socially, culturally, all of it. Come up with a plan for them so that when they leave, they feel like they have some actionable things that they can do to make their life better and work their way out of the difficult situations they're in. If they come to me 3, 4, 5, 10 times with the same issues, we're going to have different conversations. And sometimes it's a matter of I'm sending a woman back into an abusive relationship that I know she's not going to leave. She needs a cleansing because she's been around all this negativity. She's built up all this trauma. I know my role in her life is going to be to give her a cleansing every month. That's it. She doesn't want advice. She doesn't want to be told you need to, here are the resources to leave your spouse. She just needs to get cleaned up and pushed back out into the ring. So it really is person to person as far as how I'm going to handle it. But usually if somebody's just flat out not listening, I will refer them out to someone else or tell them that I've done all that I can do for them. And that was a really long answer to a really short question.
That's
No,
right.
great.
You're going to laugh. The thing, I do have a question. Is a swap meet what the East Coast calls a flea market?
Yes.
Thank you. What was that?
Same thing.
You have, I don't know that I would call it more patience than I do, but the fact that as a bruja, you are so incredibly, I mean, I try to be non-judgmental. I could not get where you are. Again, it's a difference in style. It's a difference in tools. But now I know who I'm sending to you. I listened to that and the idea of these, for one thing, you have a much more multicultural melange, if you will, than I have to work in. Most of my people are East Coasters, and Canadians are not all that different from us. They're just a lot more polite. And so because I live in upstate rural, especially, do I have a lot of the different multicultural? No, I do get some Indian. I do get some Asian, but California is just so much more of a melting pot than upstate New York. You get more of an opportunity to be in a completely different place. And I'm not envious of that. That's not the right word, but I would not mind having something that broadened my swimming pool the way you've got, because I think that's one of the reasons that you've developed this brilliant ability to simply be in the moment. You know where the groove is, then you know how to walk the groove. That I think that's probably one of the reasons that we have evolved so differently, but both we are good and useful for the people that come to us. And my people aren't your people, and your people aren't my people. And I'm glad that they found both of us, which is another long answer to think, geez, wow, I couldn't do what you do. And I'm amazed that you can you can jump from world to world to world to world. I guess that's the best way I want to put it. Dahlia, am I making sense?
Sure.
Yes.
Right.
And I think there's space here also to recognize, like, when people ask, this was something that it took me time to learn, when people ask the same questions over and over, there may be a different intention behind it.
Explain me on that one.
So somebody comes in and says, what's my purpose the first time, and you start having conversations about global impact, what they're doing in their lives, et cetera, et cetera. And then they come back and they go, I don't feel like I really have a handle on my purpose. But at that juncture in their life, they may be dealing with, getting demoted at work and feeling devalued,
Right.
as opposed to the original thing that was, how do I work towards this thing? It was like, wait a minute, somebody told me I didn't matter as much. So how do I get that back? It's the same question, but it takes like a particular, the way I learned was to keep asking questions. So, you know, what makes you ask that? What brings you to that space right here, right now? What else is going on in your life? I think Katrina was speaking to a lot of that, just tackling different areas and holding space for that. And I think that our audience could benefit from that. Is this a leaf or a tree experience? What's the intention? Like, why are you getting into it? If it's a leaf, are you getting into it to perform, to, get that grand old certificate? Or is it, one thing that you both share is how your experiences bring you back to you? So then, is that why you're getting into it? um I got into healing work for that reason. My heart was broken. I didn't care. I didn't give a shit about anybody else. Now I give a shit about everybody. So, it um I think that with leaves and trees, and what is your intention being the net of how do you know, brings it all together. And we have some audience members. Kelly was talking about struggling with expectation.
Mhm.
And I think that with Katrina's stories of leaf and tree moments, or feeling like a tree but suddenly being a pile of leaves, I maybe, Katrina, you could speak to this. Do you think that expectation exacerbated that?
I think expectation is where growth goes to die.
Okay.
I
I
think
love
it's
that phrasing.
also it's in my experience, and I counsel people all day long, literally stopping what I'm doing in counseling and work to do tea and Crones and then go right back to it afterwards. I mean, we're talking 50, 60 hours a week of client interaction. And so what I see in that is that the vast majority of interpersonal difficulties stem from expectations and expectations. It's usually the expectations that someone places on another person without their consent or even their knowledge that creates problems in relationships. With me personally, it was absolutely my expectations that things were not going. I'm a Virgo. I expected things would never change. Things are as they are now. I deplore change. And I married a Scorpio who is my, the heart of my heart. And Eric is just, especially when he was younger, he's better about it now, but he would literally go to sleep with us talking about what we're going to do the next day. And when he opened his eyes the next day, there's a whole new plan. Oh no, we're going to do this.
Death and
And
rebirth, says
it
the
was
Scorpio.
it was maddening. And I had to completely set aside any expectation of what my next day was going to be, what my next year was going to be. Also, from the experience of extreme poverty,
Mm.
the assignment of expectation in a position of poverty is such that, here comes the cat, is such that
Hi, hun.
you don't have as many options to fulfill expectation.
Mm.
And so there's a greater chance that you're going to be let down in some way. And so assigning now, should you expect to be treated with dignity and respect? Absolutely. Are people going to fail you in that regard? Absolutely. That is when you make life choices. But putting expectations on someone consistently to be other than who they are is what will cause those relationships to fail.
Absolutely.
Or having the expectation that someone is going to treat you the same way you treat them is another common expectation. Just because you treat them that way, that they're going to suddenly change who they are and treat you in the same way. That's not likely to happen. So I really can't speak enough to the idea that ego and expectation are the greatest destructors in our lives these days.
Absolutely.
Yep. Perfect example of, man plans, God laughs. This last year, I defy anyone to say, yes, last year I had all my plans in a row on January 1st and they all worked out. I'm not going to believe you. So yeah, this is why I use my idea about the Martian detective who doesn't have the expectations. He simply observes and asks, cheerfully asks the questions, because he's got no dime in it. It's just, all right, there's water coming out of your eyes. That's very cool. Why? Expectations are where the horrible phrases like, if you loved me, you would, come from. Oh, talk about poison. No, if you love me, you love me, period, and end of statement. If I give you a gift, it's because I'm choosing to give you a gift. It's not a bargaining chip. Again, but I bought you something for your birthday. Why didn't you buy me? No, because you decided to. And sometimes that's really hard for people to get their heads around. But if they can learn it opens up the whole world.
I think that with regard to leaves and trees and expectation here, I watch people search, I watch people search. I did it myself. I took the class and I was like, yep, this is it. This is going to be the thing that I will do. And, that expectation definitely killed my growth, trying to do the same Reiki hand positions every single time, running out of time. And well, this actually doesn't need it. And, so I think with regard, I like the lens of expecting basic human decency and respect, and expect to get a return on your investment, but do not expect what that return looks like.
One of the most valuable things I heard regarding relationships, and I want to say it was John Gray who said this, but I'm not positive, was that we absolutely have to learn the love languages, not only of our partners, but of our children and our parents and our deep friendships. We have to learn what their currency is, because it's going to be different than ours. And one of the things that he said was, if you married a person who's Japanese and you don't speak Japanese at all, and this person is telling you all day long, I love you, I love you, I love you in Japanese, and you don't understand Japanese, that doesn't minimize the emotion and feeling that they're putting into their words. It just means you can't understand it. And sometimes expressions of love look different than what yours do. And so you don't always recognize those. And if you're a person that your love language is acts of service, and the other person, your partner, it just doesn't register for them, they're not given to that. Maybe this is somebody who was very protected by their parents or is used to having everything given to them and just doesn't have that capacity to give in that regard. That's not going to be a comfortable match for you unless you shift your expectations of what they are able to do to show you love. So they might have words of love as their love language. So telling you and saying those words to you is important, and it's important for them to hear it back. So here you are handing them things they need all the time, but not saying I love you. And here they are saying I love you and not doing things for you. And so both of you feel unloved when you're actually just speaking a different language of love. And those languages, sometimes they have to be compatible.
We seem to be having a bit of an astrological conversation going on in our comment section as far
Oh,
as
really?
Tell me.
change is concerned. So, and I mean, it's, you know, small, but Kelly was mentioning being a Scorpio, and we already spoke to, you know, the ebb and flow of the Scorpio, and how deeply they can get into things, and then just bloop, gone. And then we also have a Sagittarius in our audience, Jessica, who thrives on constant change. She needs to earn, you know, some sort of well, maybe not earn an accomplishment, but like continue movement, or she feels stagnant. So which is pretty typical of any fire sign. Don't let them fool you. I had an Aries tell me once that he was patient, and I was like, okay.
What
Liar.
planet? Yes, indeed.
So with I definitely could see how your astrological placements play into those columns, right? That like I knew from the beginning that I was this, versus the constant need for change and flux, to the middle person who's like, I absolutely hate change, but I'm here for it, you know. Um, so this is really an interesting conversation, because I think it allows our audience to really introspect on um, maybe the foundation of this is what's meaningful to you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what is calling you, and sit with it, to have the conversation to find out why it's calling you, without the expectation or the assumption that it will lead to something grand, so to speak.
One of the things that my students have brought to me frequently is the idea, but everything happens for a purpose, doesn't it? And my response to them is usually, yes, it absolutely does. But sometimes those reasons are just not interesting.
Yeah.
You know, something might be happening for a purpose that has nothing to do with you, but it's happening to you. Not everything is a huge impact. And people want to believe that life is so nuanced that everything that happens to them is just vitally important. And sometimes it just isn't all that important. It's important because of something unrelated to you. That's how nuanced it is. And so they will discover something and say, oh, you know, this book fell off the shelf in your store, so it must be trying to tell me something. And I'm thinking, yeah, it's trying to tell me that I should have stacked those books better. You know, sometimes the message is for me, not for them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I mean, think about those times when you meet someone and have an intense 20-minute exchange and you never see them again. And maybe it was that you turned their life around, but your life is not going to be affected by it. To think that everything that happens to you is for you is like saying you get all the Halloween candy. No, you got to share. And if everybody felt everything that happens is all about me, so where is groupthink? Where is, you know, how do you affect your soulmate, your twin flame? You know, what's the karmic thing? No, guys, sometimes you're crossing the street, you will never remember, but somebody else will see you, think it's their dead father, then go and talk to a medium, and now they've decided that they really do believe in. But you will never know it. You've got to be okay with that.
Sometimes too, you're just the link. For
Mhm.
instance, when my first husband and I split up thousands of years ago, I was just devastated. And I didn't think I would ever, I actually said, I'm not getting married again. This is absolute bullshit. I don't want to be with anybody again. And my cards kept telling me that on September 7th, I was going to meet somebody that would change my life forever. And admittedly, I got intrigued because I thought, well, this is so persistent. This must be somebody really big that's going to be, a big part of my life for a really, really long time. They're going to change my life forever. What? And it happened that on September 7th, I met the only pagan male in Idaho at that time. And I did readings on it, and they're like, yeah, you're supposed to start a relationship with this person. My readings were very clear about it. And I was like, I don't even like this person. They're a horrible person. They trigger me. They remind me of my ex. Not my ex-husband, but an ex from a long time ago. I just want no part of it. Nope, this is what you need to do. You need to be involved with this person. So I started a relationship with them, not liking them and never really liking them very much the entire time I was with them, because my cards told me to. And I clearly couldn't be trusted because my 17-year marriage was ending. So I had that relationship, moved in with the person, started a coven with the person. And the whole time I'm saying, this can't be right. We are so incompatible. This is terrible. There's absolutely no level that we relate on. Why would you? I'm beating the ground and cursing the goddess and all kinds of stuff about why would you do this to me? This is terrible. This is like punishment after punishment. And then this person, who was an Air Force person, had a best friend from Korea named Eric Rasbold that I met. And through that relationship that was maybe 4 tumultuous months long, I met my husband, and this year will be our 24th anniversary and 25 years together. And so that other person was just the link and did change my life forever by introducing me to Eric. And then, interestingly enough, several years later, we had a son born on September 7th. So sometimes you are just the link. Corby and I had a facilitator that introduced us. And Corby has now been in my life longer than the facilitator was. The facilitator was just a brief client connection real quick, but she introduced me to Corby, and Corby and I have been friends for a long time now. So that person was just the link.
Mm-hmm. Out of both of our lives, live and be well, but thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the swag.
That person was the leaf.
The link, the leaf. Yes, she was.
Or the fertilizer, you never know.
Wow, what a powerful story.
These are the fun parts, when you take an idea and then the three of us kind of just throw the things around and have these conversations the same way if we were all sitting around in Shingle Springs or Virginia or New York. But y'all watch and get a little view in here. But so do we have anything to sum it up with, or just, yes, some of us are leaves and some of us are trees and some of us are just a pile of fertilizer? What do you think?
Closing
leaves,
thoughts?
trees, sticks, all good.
Mm-hmm.
Corby?
Yes.
Closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts. Other than the fact that in real life I have a black thumb, I kill plastic plants, that does not bode well. But seriously, this has kind of opened up my eyes to leaves and trees as opposed to leaves or trees. But that's what Crone Talk is all about. Can you get out of your ideas and change?
Absolutely. This was a wonderful discussion. Again, I always love looking at you both as mirrors, and I grow a little with each moment. So I guess I am both leaf and tree. And I'm just grateful to be here. I'm grateful for our audience that sticks with us 8 episodes deep. I mean, do we propose next time? I don't know. But immense gratitude is what I have for both of you. And I think with that, it's time for our figurative tree to go into a state of hibernation on this particular topic. But we're rooted in one another, and we'll be back next Sunday. Until then, you all can catch these two lovely ladies on their perspective Facebook channel or Facebook pages and Patreon channels and things of that nature. Witches at the Crossroads is every Thursday. I wish I had like one of those voice things that
like echo dragway that echoes. Yeah.
And then of course Corby has her Sentence of Passion event coming up that's March 26th.
It's coming up next Saturday.
Yep.
You got to hustle your bustle if you want to take it. You have to sign up by Wednesday because you're going to have homework to do it. Go to the East West Bookshop.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's Bothell, Washington. You can sign up there.
And that they'll host the live event as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and then we just had today Corby's free reading hour. And so you can look forward to that next month too. It's monthly. So you get Katrina and the gang, the lovely Gladys and Nelta joining her. And it's a ball of laughs and great advice. I mean, I think that people kind of sleep on the idea that I got my reading, let me dip out. If you're there for a reason, and guaranteed you're going to get a gem if you stick around, if not a side stitch from not being able to breathe with all of the laughter.
Yes.
So that you get Katrina every Thursday, you get Corby monthly, and you get the three of us every Sunday. So with that, I hope that we have been great tools of healing and the divine for you all, and that we will see you all next time. Comment, subscribe, do all the things, talk to us, and let's continue to build together. But on that note, I will say goodbye and good night to our audience, and goodbye. Any goodbyes from Katrina and Corby?
Be safe, guys.